Right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is the 26th of May 2023, tarehe 26 mwezi ni watano mwaka 2023. Natumai kwamba uko salama, mamka vizuri, you're up and upbeat and ready to tackle your day. It's another Friday and thank God it's Friday, Sheria Wiki Hii edition of the 26th of May 2023. Lakini kama kawaida wanazungumzia mambo ya sheria. As usual, we have Daktari Ekuru Aokot, who of course will be headlining the show as we have the conversation around the legal issues that are happening during the weekend, also the political issues and the state of the nation as well. We also have Brenda Ongalo, who is an advocate of the Aokot. It's the first time on the tackle. We were expecting her last week, but she was unwell. And now she's back, or she's in on the tackle for the first time. So we'll be hearing more of her. We also have Bigambo.
Alienda State House.
Inaweza kuwa alikuwa ameenda State House, huwezi jua. Sasa mtu anaweza kuwa anaongelea maneno. Ameneenda anapandisha unga.
Atatuambia alikuwa.
Sasa hizi bei ya sukari imekuwa bei kama anyway, Javas Bigambo also should be in shortly. So as usual, when you we get to know that you're watching us, and after please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is the tackle and it begins right now. Lakini kama kawaida mbele za Mungu tukirudi na kuja kujua ni vipi. Najua Ekuru hapendi mambo ya kusema tunaomba. Mimi ni kama bishop lazima. Upendo usipende lazima nikuongelee mikono.
Ni bishop wa Shakahola ama ni bishop wa ile nyingine.
Unajua ni bishop wa ukweli. Unajua ni bishop wa ukweli.
Unajua Bitok even before you pray, I'm not an avid reader of the Bible, but somewhere in the Bible they say that towards the last days of the world, there'll be so many false prophets, including those who lie to people that starve yourself to death.
But so that you can meet not told them not to starve. Yeah? I'm telling you guys to eat kuleni. My business is not to take you to Jesus now. I'll take you slowly. He'll come back for you. This is all. But like alisema yeye mwenyewe atarudia watoto wake, because so we are not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry to take you guys.
Unasema tunaenda ama anakuja?
Yeye mwenyewe anakuja, alafu tuende pamoja.
Alisema ataingia kama mwizi.
Atakuja kama mwizi. Ndio msimuone. Ndio anasema juzi, if you are single, don't close your door when you're sleeping. Maybe your partner is a thief. Nairobi pia naona homa ya Nairobi imefikia daktari, pole sana. Umefikiwa.
Sijui ni kama COVID. I'm thinking, this COVID thing has now become a business.
Okay.
It's actually a global business, because you are told there's this variant, there's variant this, there's variant that. If you vaccinate, you'll be safe. But if you vaccinate again, there's no surety that you'll be safe. So unashindwa tu, ama tuende tukunywa tu mitishamba bwana.
Mitishamba ndio dawa. Hakuna njia nyingine. Mitishamba ndio dawa. And you actually there's a statement by WHO this week, and they've said that we need to prepare for a disease that's worse than COVID.
What?
A virus that's worse, yes. There's been a statement on that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Kama umefikiwa na homa Nairobi, saidia daktari Ekuru, mwambie dawa ni gani. Wengine wamesema dawa ni nini? Unajua Gilbis?
Yo sasa ni unabii wa uongo.
Gilbis runs the entire Nairobi economy. Ni dawa,
ndio. Haya sasa daktari, mimi kama bishop siwezi kutuma, lakini ni general advice. Imetoka. Alright, haya tuombe. Mighty Father, come before you this morning. We thank you for this day. Thank you for an opportunity to have this conversation, to converge and converse this morning. Thank you for every tackler. May meet them at the point of individual needs. Even Daktari, may you heal him this morning. May you give him relief. For we pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Now that Bishop have declared healing upon you, you shall be okay. You shall be well. Like tumebakisha tu kutoa sadaka ya upendo.
Lakini ni mabishop. Kwa nini mnapenda kupewa sadaka na wakati if you are following in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ never asked his disciples or his followers to donate to him.
You don't.
As a matter of fact, he fed the poor. But these days the poor feed the Shakahola.
Clearly you don't read the Bible.
Yeah?
Where did he get what he used to feed the poor?
He took it from one of the boys.
He took it from people who
exactly,
were
but he multiplied it to feed the multitudes. But
so
now
so you give me, so I multiply in prayers.
Yeah.
Then now the
Lord but we don't see the today's bishops and priests multiplying whatever they get from the poor and to even build homes or even donate. How to not kupokea all the time, to donate marambe kwa kanisa kila siku. You know, hata wakati kuna kanisa pastor sijui lazima sijui achangiwe sijui Range Rover. The other day even so another one he cannot walk on foot, anatengezewa kitu sijui ati anabebwa. Now what nonsense is that?
The guy drives all the way. The guy drives all the way to the pulpit. Yeah. Anyway, that's interesting, of course. But then again, they're real bishops like myself. You see, what is happening is Jesus was the Son of God, so he had authority to multiply. But me as a bishop, I don't have the authority to multiply. But I ask him to multiply.
Hata ule watongaren, ile Yesu watongaren.
Yeah, sasa yeye amesema ni Yesu direct, lakini niliona akikunywa Lugos nikajua yenyewe dunia ni ngumu.
I saw a very interesting defense from Professor Wajakoya.
He actually called me
while pleading for reasonable grounds or bail. And he asked a very pertinent question. It sounded very silly, lakini very pertinent. He said that if you don't believe Yesu watongaren ni Yesu, produce the real Jesus.
And that actually makes sense. Anyway, Jojo Rodi, asante. Good morning to you, Jojo Rodi. Amoi Kehi. Good morning to you, Amoi. Hope you're doing well. Asante Sara. Danson Kinyua. Good morning, GB and the fellow Taxless. Asante. Let's look at the news headlines this morning. The newspaper headlines this morning. Tunamaliza law at exactly 9 a.m. People Daily, school games put on hold as funds delayed. Pay packs its lion's share of tax money. Where your cash goes, more than shillings 316 billion was used on personal emoluments for national and county governments workers in 10 months between June 2022 and March this year. Salaries and Remuneration Commission has warned that trend leaves too little for development. The story is on page 4. And I've said this banned counties. Outbreak as final curtain falls on Tina Turner. Of course, those beautiful days that we remember. Celebrating Africa Day as AU clocks 60. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in a red tie. Comoros President and Chairperson of the African Union Azali Azumani and African Union Commissioner Chairperson Moussa Faki Mahamat joined guests to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Organization of African Unity, New African Union at the African Union Commission headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, yesterday. The feat is also known as African Day. Amen. And the question would be, has Africa achieved much since independence? The trouble in counties, governor's confession. County chiefs list litany of problems that have it devolved units as they are on life support. Page 15 of the Star. Siasa Kanuru regain political control of Mount Kenya block. Police dump Maina Njenga in Nairobi after roaming with him for hours. Okay. Yeah. Mungiki come back. Supporters of Maina Njenga Center engage police officers in Kiambu Road following his alleged arrest on Thursday. Alamas Kasoko Boys closed indefinitely after student's death. Kasoko High School in Bungoma has been closed indefinitely following the death of a student. Speaking to the press in his office on Thursday, LCEC Dr. Andrew Wamalwa said the problem started on May 17 after 24 students developed severe headaches and general body weaknesses. Lazima ni homa ya Kanairo imefika Western. Ruta team to Azimio. Withdrawal from talks premature, unnecessary. President William Ruto's troops in bipartisan team on Thursday termed Azimio move to walk out of the talks premature and unnecessary. The team led by Tharaka MP George Muragura said their counterparts did not exhaust all avenues of conflict resolution as provided for in the committee's framework agreement. Right? So Azimio has walked out of the talks. Of the bipartisan talks.
Surprised.
Alright. Taifa leo majeraha yaipa Man City ofu. Jana kwanza watu wa Chelsea wamenyukwa kunyukwa. 4-1.
What was there to be won? Ligi ilishaisha.
Kulimwa. Disikia watu wa Chelsea. Ushuru sumu hiko hapa. 3% serikali kunyofoa 3% ya mishahara ya wafanyakazi kufadhili nyumba. 3% nyingine mama mboga bodaboda wanaopata shilingi 1344 kwa siku kutozwa ushuru ya 3% ya mapato. Okay, if you earning anything 1344 upwards you have to pay 3%. Lazima ulipe ushuru ya 3%. Haya 15% bidhaa ama huduma zitakazotozwa ushuru kwa 15%. Huduma za simu na interneti, ukitumia simu unapigwa 15%. Kutuma pesa kwa simu ya M-Pesa 15%. Matangazo ya pombe, kamari redioni, magazetini au runinga 15%. 20% bidhaa huduma zitakazotozwa ushuru kwa 20% ni kamari, mashindano ya fedha, watu wa betting mumefikiwa. Mikopo ya simu kama vile Tala na Branch. Ukikopa pesa pia ukifuliza 20%. 16% jifunge mkanda bidhaa huduma hizi kutozwa ushuru kwa 16%. Maziwa ya watoto ndio ambao wananunua maziwa ya watoto 16%. Petroli ya dizeli ama mafuta taa 16%. Maeneo ya kupumzika ukienda kutulia tu kidogo hivi 16%. Nilikodishwa kusafirisha sukari ya hatari. Mshukiwa mkuu katika sakata ya magunia 20,020 ya sukari yenye sumu ajitetea. Amesema yeye tu alikuwa anasafirisha. Yeye ni contractor wa kubeba. Mrengo wa rais wafokea azimio. Washutumu muungano wa Raila kwa kusitisha mazungumzo ghafla. Ukurasa wa pili wa Taifa Leo ndio hivyo. Kila nyani na stare zake fahamu jinsi macelebs kama vile Beyonce na Angelina Jolie wanavyopumbaza kwa njia za kushangaza. Haya mambo ya first world problems. Tujafika hapo sisi. Daily Nation, hidden tax pain in Ruto's budget. I think you've seen a number of that on the Daily Nation as well. Raila's moment of truth, decision time. Opposition chief Raila Odinga is a man at a crossroads. He must, alongside his Azimio la Umoja colleagues, decide the fate of bipartisan talks with President William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza, take a stand on finance bill, and once again tackle his coalition's threat to call for self-determination. Will he chart the uncharted? The story is on page 6. A student loses shillings under 2 million. Love gift to the state. Serikali imesema ile pesa mlipeana mapenzi mzungu na nani? Alikuwa nitoa nani msichana? 102 million sasa imeenda kwa serikali. Okay. Simply the best. Tina Turner exits the stage. Pension draw. Where is our money? Retired teachers cry foul over shillings for the 3 billion dues. Okay. Walimu wamesema wanataka kulipa pesa yao ya retirement. The Standard as well. Silent pause in the Ruto government. Cracks within. This week's resignation of Correctional Services PS Estangero, days after she was moved from Prime Cabinet Secretary's office, as a supposed simmering tensions within the Kenya Kwanza administration, coming only a week after the president was forced to crack the whip on and reshuffle his PSs. The story is on page 4 of the Standard. Dr. Josephine Mburu, who was sacked. Estangero quit. Okay, kipindi ndio hiyo. Simply the best. Tina Turner exits the stage. Who will succeed Kipchoge? Mombasa County Raho over charity. Under it to the registrar in Raila's crosshairs. Tibetos leaders eat humble pie. Pale Kericho na Bomet TSL zimefungwa kwa sababu vijana wanachoma machine za kuvuna kuchuna chai. All right, my brother, anything you want to pick on there?
You know, okay, the glaring concern there, of course, is two things. There is obvious overtaxation of Kenya by this government. It is not explained why all of a sudden overtaxation. Is it because there is a budget deficit? Is it because there is an urgent project that needs to be, to be completed? So there is no explanation as to why there is overtaxation. Okay. Is it because of the national debt? So taxation is okay, but overtaxation for me is an issue without an explanation. So that's one thing. But the other thing that is emerging from just the newspaper reporting is that we are now dealing with a very, very desperate government that appears to have found itself in a state of affairs where it does not know where to go or what to do. And of course, it takes us back to election time when you will imagine that this is a government of people who are not new, as we have said repeatedly in this show and in other forums, that these are not people who are new in government. If indeed, honestly, they knew that things were going wrong, like the way they have been blaming the handshake government of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, then they ought to have known what needs to be fixed at the right time. And that's why I think they came up with the idea of the plan, and that the plan was meant to fix the things that were going wrong. Because after observing being in government for, say, 10 years, and we're talking about William Ruto, who was then the deputy president for 10 years, so he cannot say that he does not know exactly what the problem with Kenya was. So when you look at the way they are so haphazard, in fact, taxation of Kenyans was not even one of the issues in their political agenda. In fact, it was, we will reduce taxes. No Kenyans will be overtaxed. There will be a lean government. We've now seen a large government. There will be this and that. The timelines, we're not even following the timelines anymore. So I'm reading from the reporting, desperation, confusion. You've already seen that they cannot eradicate corruption. People resigning is okay. People being whipped to leave office is okay. But I would like to see them being charged in a court of law. If there is money that was stolen, I want to see that money refunded, recovered, and people must serve jail. That's the only way you can send a message across the board to other ministries. But to give people an easy exit of just reshuffling them or firing them and letting them go like that, for me, it's not a solution.
Okay. All right. Akili, what's your pick?
My top pick would be on top of the taxation issue, the whole finance bill thing. We have a government that looks so confused right now because you see the PS housing at pains to just explain what this is. If Kenyans ask you, can you tell us why you need this 3% or what this 3% is? He does not seem to understand what this 3% is. So you find the president being put on the spot that he has to explain something that he clearly also does not understand. Is it a priority right now? You're not going to tell me you want to take my 3%, that I'll have options on what to do with it in 7 years, yet I may not be alive if you continue taxing me and taking up everything that I have. The other issue would be the collapse of the bipartisan talks. Now, a situation where to conjure, we don't know what exactly is going to happen with our taxes should the finance bill pass as it is. M-Pesa transactions set to go up. Already the cost of doing business in this country is too high. Introducing such kind of taxes at this point is killing any small businesses. The micro and medium-sized enterprises are definitely going to collapse because why would I be subjected to all this at this point? Then at the same time, there's the fear of what maandamano comes with. Because if there are talks of maandamano resuming, because these people cannot just agree. But you see the points, if you listen to Otiende Amolo speak, and what he mentioned to being the reasons as to why they do not want to continue, the issues are nothing to do with the cost of living. So the mwananchi is being told, enda andamana because cost of living is too high. But the issues that they're bringing, what they seem to talk about, they lack a place to report, their concerns are not being addressed, the issues that they have had to cede to their counterparts on the discussion table, issues to do with reconstitution of IEBC. I mean, what are our priorities? Both as the government and the opposition, we seem to be all over the place. We do not know what exactly we want. But rather, the president focuses on what is important to the mwananchi right now, so that we do not move from in the first 100 days to now we see the prime cabinet secretary talking about Kazeni Mkanda for 2 years. So who will be alive then? Yeah.
By the way, just to pick from what Akili Ongalo's left, this thing of IEBC, first of all, I think it's a nonsensical discussion in the country at this time. The next election is 2027. Why don't we even shelve the question around the IEBC to 2026? Reconsidering the commission is not a priority right now. As a matter of fact, they do absolutely nothing. The people who are working at the IEBC, actually the secretariat. The secretariat is alive, and what is the function of IEBC right now? Their main function probably is to conduct civic education, which they are not able to do, or they are not doing, or just continuous registration of voters. Those are the main fundamental things.
There's no decisive activity.
There's nothing else. And we already have county constituency offices. So we don't even need commissioners. To be honest with you, I think we should appoint part-time commissioners in 2026 just to be appraised of the election processes, in 2027. Let the secretary prepare all that. You don't need commissioners, to be honest. We only need them at the tail end of the process, which is 2026. So it is also an excuse, like Wakili said. If you look at the agenda of what ODM is saying, it's completely nonsensical. And by the way, that now takes me to what I wanted to reflect upon this week as the state of the nation. I watched this tired Mzee, who should really retire from Koto, called Atuoli. He was saying that he recommends that President Ruto and Raila Odinga meet and fix the economic mess. Bitok, and I've also heard this in other quarters, that Raila and Ruto must meet, blah, blah, blah. First of all, I ask myself, what is this magic wand that Raila has that can fix this economic mess in this country which he is not sharing right now as an alternative to that of the government. The way I understand opposition politics is that, yes, you respect the government of the day, but whatever the government is proposing, say, for example, the housing levy, what's your alternative? And now it's emerged. In fact, I'd missed that Raila himself had also proposed a housing levy, which they are now trying to oppose. Only that the difference was he was proposing 1.5%, and now William Ruto and his government are proposing 3%. But at the risk of sounding very comical, when they say these people must meet, I saw them together at Mama Mukami's funeral. I saw them even change at Kasarani, wearing almost the same uniform. I know that they meet at their private members' clubs. I know they also meet at their private homes. So these meetings, they're saying they must meet.
Which one is it?
What is it for? And nobody's saying the purpose for this particular meeting. They are just shy from saying we want to be. Some of these folks can never survive outside government because, unlike you and I and, Javas here and Ongalo, we can report to an office and we know we can either hang around the court corridors with a kafile with a client and get some fees paid. But for some of them, if it is not free public money, a free car, these people have never known what it means to fix a tire. So they will do anything possible to disrupt government of the day so that they can be in. And that is the whole essence of all this meeting. There is a forum in Parliament where, there was already a forum in Parliament where you've got the leader of the majority, the leader of the minority representing the opposition. You've got the whips either way. So why is it that the so-called Azimio, or now people are calling them Azimidiots, because they continue really to fool themselves? Why have they not even tabled a single motion in Parliament on the issues that actually concern Kenyans? Why is Otiende Amolo crying, being a crybaby, giving press statements of things that he should be tabling in Parliament to be debated as a motion? Because that's what Parliament is for, and we have not seen any alternative policy to that of the government. So they should just stop taking Kenyans for a ride and say, okay, we want to join government, or we want to push Mzee into government. That's all that's happening, because easy meetings, miscellaneous, because I know these guys meet. They even call each other. So what?
They call each other my brother.
My brother, yes. And by the way, Bitok, I could be wrong, but also in 2020, we predicted in this show that Baba alichezwa na anachezwa. Wakenya wanachezwa on these bipartisan talks. This time Kenyans are being played. This is just managing the base. Okay. That's why you've seen Mother Karua has gone quiet. Jeremiah Kioni is fighting his wars in Jubilee. Eugene Wamala, I don't know where he is, and I don't know who is the other one.
Presenting by Nanjanga yesterday.
Kalonzo ndio huyo. And by the way, I think actually, let me mock them kidogo. I'm having the last laugh when I see what's happening in Jubilee. I'm actually having the last laugh. You remember when we were promoting Punguza Mizigo Kenya bill, against BBI, and. Of course, they infiltrated my party, even bribed some of my NEC members, and I was a victim. They wanted to remove me from the party. They even lied that I stole some 500 million, and I wish God had answered that prayer.
Tungekuwa tunakula.
Kwanza leo being a Friday. I'm laughing at what's happening to Uhuru. The same thing they tried to do to me is happening to them right now. The same register political party was being used to try and disrupt my party. The same is happening to them. This just tells you that these folks have no principles, they have no stand in life, they have really nothing to offer about this. It's about self and just themselves, nothing about Kenya.
All right. Now, Madam Brenda, okay, what then does it say, even picking up from that, on the state of political parties? What does it say about political parties and the space of democracy in that sense? Do political parties really represent anything tangible? Because you imagine that Jubilee, that when it was formed, we were told that it was a party that once in the lifetime of this country, you're going to have a party that was going to be around for 100 years. Look at what is happening right now. It's literally falling apart. What is the state of political parties?
I think until as a country we have our political parties based on ideologies, we are still very, very far from democracy. Democracy is just there as a word that we use to describe ourselves as a democratic country. Our parties are just look at ODM. It has democracy as its name. But what happens there is something that most of the time I tend to say everything that happens to Raila, with all due respect, is as a result of him using the term democracy to benefit himself, because there's nothing democratic about ODM, the party. You look at Jubilee, you think that this was founded on ideologies and all that. Why would a retired president not take his retirement seriously and rest? Instead, now he's fighting back to come to the leadership of a party. You are retired. Just give up that party. There are other people. I mean, if you do not trust, if the foundation of a political party is an individual and not ideologies, then it clearly means there's nobody. Whoever you have left in that party, the stakes are not what the party stands for. It's not about. They have a manifesto, yes. They have the constitution of the party and what they think they believe in, but clearly hakuna. At this point, if people can be fighting and the registrar is being tossed left, right, and center, we are now taking over the party. Who is the right? Who's right to chair this party at this point? You have a retired president fighting to get back to it, and we have seen that happening for several other parties. So we need to rethink. Do we need parties? Are they just political vehicles, or do they champion for anything in this country? So it's painful to see a retired president fighting with people that were his closest allies in just the last election.
Actually, juniors. Now they are facing him.
But now everyone wants a piece of that leadership. What is it? Is it the party that you're fighting for, or you're fighting for control of Mount Kenya? Because Jubilee, that was supposed to be national and was supposed to exist for so long, has now been reduced to a Mount Kenya affair. Why are we not seeing people from outside Mount Kenya fighting to control Jubilee? Why are we not seeing anyone fighting to control ODM outside Luo Nyanza? So if we should just do away with the political parties, by the way, because no, I happen to sit in the neck of a party in this country that is run by ideologies, and we opted not to fight these things right now, because I know we are very, very far. If it's not for the political parties funding, trust me, these parties would not exist. Nobody would want to control any party. Yeah.
So but we don't. Not all political parties in Kenya actually get funding, and in fact, that's one of the things that our party has been opposed to. We need to abolish that political parties fund, because why should taxpayers' money be used to fund political parties?
That's why you see people hanging on to parties. They do not want to leave because there is free money in those parties. That free money for those parties should be used to actually develop some things. We should not be overburdened with you start taxing digital services that you have not defined what amounts to a digital service.
But then you can imagine how discouraging taxing digital services. And you look at the people who are actually in that digital, industry. It's our youth. Yeah, the people who are actually trying to empower. People who are using their own intellect and skill. Now imagine you are discouraging them.
Tumefikiwa finally.
You waste your morning, you put in so much to even get subscribers on YouTube, only for you to now be taxed with the same government that has failed to provide opportunities for you to grow as a young person. So you try finding your footing elsewhere, they're not coming in to tax you over that. In the name of they need money that they need to collect and fund political parties in this country that do not stand for anything. Because if political parties were working, ideologies were there, trust me, at this point, the bipartisan talks would not be collapsing over things that are not making sense. Because if if President Ruto and Raila do not trust the people that they have put to represent them there, then they should just meet themselves and disband these other ones. But again, meeting to do what? That is the question.
But Bitok, just before maybe Javas jumps in, Ongalo, allow me to kind of slightly differ with you. No, sorry, I don't want to dismiss entirely the fact that we are very, very strange, can I use the word maybe unscrupulous political parties in Kenya. I don't think we've never understood the idea, the whole philosophy around political parties. But I wonder whether the problem really is political parties or us as a people, as a society, because of our tribal thinking, our tribal alignment, regional alignment. sometimes I tend to think that even when a political party has a good idea that could be promoted, but people will say, oh, no, who is promoting it? I mean, listen, I'm a victim of that. When you brought in Punguza Mizigo Kenya, which for me, because I'm not saying it was perfect, it has got its own challenges, but overall, I think we're trying to reduce the cost of living. Because when I read now, for example, the story of Siaya, I see finally Orengo, senior counsel, is saying to his deputy, why don't you just resign? But they are the same people who could not even allow us to come and present our bill in Siaya County Assembly. Because one of our proposals was, we don't see the value in the deputy governor's position. We need to abolish that position. The nominations, the cost of running government generally, devolution, sending more money to the country. Now, Ekurus and the rest of the Council of Governors are complaining about the fact that devolution is being threatened. We were strengthening devolution under the under the Punguza Mizigo bill. Corruption, I mean, we are calling it theft of public money, and we are putting structures on how we can create a forensic audit department, the Auditor General Office, DPP then should pick that up as a first reader of that bill, prefer charges. We are putting timelines. Now here the president saying, I will not tolerate corruption. All those things were there. For us, I mean, I wasn't boasting of any regional support or any tribal support over the fact that I come from a very small tribe. I never saw myself as such. But I think sometimes a political party could generate a very good idea. But because of the way in which we are wired politically to think tribally, regionally, in terms of personality, I see guys who live in, somebody told me, if you want to die, just buy your own coffin, go to some street in Kisumu, it's called, I think, something Odinga. There's a place there where they have got Kamukunji. Bunge la Mwananchi, and just shout obscenities against Raila. You'll be killed and then you put in your own coffee. That's what somebody told me.
Wenda kama umejipanga.
A personality cult. Or go somewhere in Kiberia Katukira and then just, be abusive of, say, Baba or so you'll be killed. So sometimes I tend to think political parties may not be necessarily a bad idea. Okay, I don't agree with the fact that we have got, 80, if not more, 80 political parties. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. And that's why now we lose the ideology. Because if you were to think...
There's no guiding principle.
There's no guiding principle. It's like the way you see in the UK, you've got three main political parties, and you can see people aligning to either of those parties. In the US, the same, So maybe political parties may not be the problem as such.
It's business, man. So that's the only way you can be principled in an election. Chama yako unakuja unaingia coalition as a principle. Haya. Java Suleiman.
Like Amazon King created PA just before election. As soon as he was made Speaker of Senate, Kwisha.
Biashara. Good morning to you. Hope you're keeping well. It's been a while.
Yeah, sure. It's been a while. How are you doing?
Salama. You've been skiving on us.
No, not really. There was only one unintended misfortune, I think a week ago or the other, that I successfully failed to enter presence here.
You successfully failed.
And it was not deliberate.
Okay.
Of course, I still register my regrets.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
All right. So maybe you can tie up the issues of the state of the political parties and also bipartisan talks and what the Guru is saying. The people are saying, oh, these people should meet. Actually, what to discuss?
Well, I do not want to have the perspective of what matter actually is when you say the state of political parties. I would look at it this way, that from the founding of our country, pre-independence, running into independence period, up to the struggle for the second liberation, and when Section 2A was expunged from the now defunct constitution, we have not been quite serious and thorough about the kind of political parties we want, or political democracy, constitutional democracy that we want in a multi-party framework. I say this with profound respect to the political parties that exist and the political leaders that have founded various political parties. Now, just last year, we had the amendment to the Political Parties Act, which provides that political parties must be founded and driven by ideologies. Now, Brenda here has indicated that she belongs to a political party that is driven by ideologies, not an ideology. And it is curious that there is one or two political parties in Kenya that are driven by ideologies. I say this because today, nearly every political party, nearly, and I use the word nearly quite selectively, are driven by what a senior counsel of mine, Ekuru, points to be the cultic drive. In devolution, we always say that resources follow functions. In politics, members or membership of political parties follow founders. And it's quite tragic. Today, we recall that, for instance, when Raila Odinga left NDP became a shell. Today, if Raila Odinga leaves ODM, it will become a shell. When you look at the history of political parties in Kenya, the moment the exit of the founder becomes material, that political party dies a natural death. As I've said elsewhere, it happened to DP, it happened to PNU with Mwai Kibaki, it happened to KANU upon the exit of the late Daniel Troy Teacher of Moi. Yes, OURP, all these parties. It is because, one, political parties are founded and driven and loved or cherished by the charismatic drive and charismatic intrusion of the founder. Today, even the revered Third Way Alliance is personified by the qualities and the character of Dr. Aokot. If we were to get somebody else running the Third Way, yes, somebody will say that why is Third Way going down? Because of the charismatic intrusion of Dr. Aokot's personification of the party. Another thing is that we perhaps have not come to a point where we can define quite clearly what ideology really is in our circumstances. What's the operational definition of ideology in Kenya? Okay. And Ongalo here, I think I would throw the challenge to her. She says she belongs to a political party that is ideologically driven. What ideology is that? Because if you were to ask members of a political party, what is the ideology of your party? Nearly one in every political party, actually, in fact, the second member in the political party will struggle to even understand what ideology really is, except the founder or the party leader. Now today, look at the challenge, even in the time leading to the handshake. If Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta were struggling and faced each other, first off in the run-up to the elections, disagreed fundamentally because of the kind of policy propositions that they were making, how can you have a handshake if you are ideologically different? Today, Raila Odinga and ODM and Azimio are saying that we want the government to implement ABCD. Why should a particular political party implement ideological positions of your own party if ideologies really vary? That's what I'm saying. We're not serious about the definition of what ideologies really are in this country. Now, another thing is that with the unfortunate emerging situation in the Jubilee Party, I would say that, for instance, with all tremendous respect, at the risk of kowtowing at the glamorous political life of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, he must not humor himself with the imagination that he's God's political gift to Kenya. Once you've served in political office, I mean, really, you can just, with a very thankful heart, cover yourself with the blanket of humility and retire at the shed of respect with the honor that is due to you. Why all this push and pull, for example, in Jubilee Party? Yeah? And the other problem that is existing in political parties is the lack of political mentorship. Okay. Today, I would ask, for example, as a matter of fact, we know very well that the life and character and verve of Jubilee Party was glorified by the charisma of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, as they then were party leader and deputy party leader, respectively, in the Jubilee Party. With their exit, upon expiry of their respective mandate in the last regime, who within the leadership of Jubilee Party today was at the founders' table, the founders' meeting, to even hew out a single aspect of vision that was carried by the two gentlemen. Today, would you argue that Jeremiah Kioni understands and is driven by the vision and mission of Jubilee Party? Does he even know that there is a vision and mission? If at all the only thing he's arguing about every single day is that Raila won and Ruto lost, what ideology is driving him?
8.9 million.
He's a cocktail away and see us.
Exactly. So what ideological position is Kioni driving in this push and pull of the mantle of leadership of Jubilee Party? And that's what I'm saying, that an ideology cannot be getting a sufuria and beating it from dawn to dusk, and then saying hunger pangs are visiting various homes. I mean, we must invite ourselves to the high standards of intellectual discourse on matters policy, on matters driving political parties and sustaining political parties. Secondly, the idea of funding political parties. Today, any political party that has got an elected member, whether in the parliament or in the county assemblies, is funded by the exchequer through the political parties fund. Why should parties that are funded by the exchequer, driven by the guardrails of institutionalization of political parties as instruments of sustaining and perpetuating democracy in Kenya, be run and managed as personal kiosks? We must not have that. Today, when Dr. Ekuru speaks about critical challenges facing society today, and even challenging, for example, the ideological position or political position of Raila Odinga, the fingers start pointing at him that he's compromised. We do not like inviting ourselves to debate as a country. And that is why even the raging... Yes. I mean, really. In Kenya, we detest critical debate.
Yeah.
We hate debate. And that is why even today, I can assure you, we are not having any meaningful discourse about the finance bill, 2023, 2023 rather. We're not having critical discourse. Because first of all, we are very shy to engage at the level of critical thought. Secondly, if you start discussing things in detail, they say that's academic, which means that we also hate academia. We hate intellect. And that is why the policy wonks in this country drive us into any kind of policy allies that they want. And then we find ourselves infuriated, but because we don't want to open ourselves to thinking.
Okay. Right.
So that being bereft of critical thought in the drive and sustenance of political parties is one problem that we're facing today. Today, I would ask you, now that elections are behind us, pick any members, 5 members from every political party. Ask them what was the manifesto of the political party in the last election.
Do we start from there? And I saw there's someone who
You're asking them to fly to the moon when they have no basic.
There's someone who tagged me this morning actually on Twitter. He was asking me, can you please ask who stole the manifesto of Kenya? So it takes us straight into, but even before you go straight into the finance bill, and of course, you had a memorandum on that. And the memorandum, so you'll take us through it as well, that we can get back to what the panel thinks. But in matters, Javas has tackled you about the issue of ideology in parties. What exactly would you describe as the ideology that's running your party? Gives it a departure from the other madness.
From objectives.
Yeah.
Not objectives, the ideology. Ideology. Yeah, because the reason why progressive countries only have 2 parties is because you're either left or right.
Yes.
There's no in between.
I am fortunate enough to belong to a party that is founded on the green ideology. So basically, social justice and sustainability.
You belong to the Green Party?
Yes, I belong to the United Green Movement, Kenya. So the fact that we know, in as much as we will talk all democracy and everything, if we do not protect our environment as it is, then all the democracy that we will have destroyed it. We would not have a country to enjoy. So my party is basically founded on anything that we do should be sustainable to our environment. As we seek to achieve the social justice, as we seek to eradicate youth unemployment and everything else, but the fact that we want to make sure that everything that we do is done in a way that the environment continues being sustained.
Let me ask a question. Is that a thematic bias or an ideology?
I wanted to ask as well. Feels more like
it's a thematic
social
bias. that is technically the vertebral column of that party's founding, but not an ideology. Now, for example, when you talk about environmental sustainability, which is a very good thing. Now, if you succeed in taking over government, what will you do about housing? What will you do about, for example, issues to do with manufacturing? There's nothing green about it, except, of course, matters to do with.
But as you think about what we do about housing, what practices are we doing? What are we doing to make sure that even as we want to build all these houses and provide cheap houses and all, what materials are we using?
I will pleasantly imagine then that there will be, you will actually stop everyone from using timber. We're
not going to stop it, because it's unreasonable to completely stop that. But progressively promoting green practices. If the cost of, like we see the developed world moving from the use of coal, just when we are discovering oil in Turkana, I don't know what happened to that oil. Because now
should tell us. It comes from his
We decided to keep it for 2 hours. For now.
The oil went for a tour, it has never come back.
What are the green practices? What are the green? What are we doing to promote environmental sustainability, even as we engage in all this? Because the aim is to gain political power. So we cannot say that we're completely just going to.
So then you're just one of those.
But you also want to preserve
But I
the
think
environment.
to Nani's, to Brenda's rescue, I think for me, ideology is not just linear. It cannot be one word. If I could just borrow, for example, a definition, a quick definition of what ideology means, it's a system of ideas and ideals. So it's not static, it's not just be based on one particular nini, especially one which forms the basis of economic or political theory and policy. So it could be a combination of all these very ideas. Like the way people say, okay, center left, I mean, like for me, I'm not for far left, far right. I'm a student of globalization. So I believe in the writings of Anthony Giddens. That's why I aspire for the idea of the third way. Because it's the real way. And if you look at, for example, some of the most successful maybe leaders in the world, for example, Tony Blair did not govern as a far right or far left. He was a middleman. Bill Clinton, the same thing. That was what was driving him ideologically. That I don't necessarily subscribe to the way the communists or whatever. So for me, I think it's maybe a cocktail of all those ideas but they should be anchored on economic and policy. Of a country, and so yes, and you are right, Javas. When you think about the oscillation of these so-called leaders, it's true to your summation that they don't have any ideology at all. Because how is it that you can be a member of KANU, you go to NDP, you go to LDP, you go to ODM, you go to I don't know what, or you start with TNA, URP, Jubilee, UDA, So really, you have no ideology. Nothing drives you other than self-gratification.
Then some hermaphrodite of a coalition.
Absolutely, yes. All those. Like now, honestly, you cannot tell what is the ideology of ODM vis-a-vis the ideology of Azimio. Because
But Azimio is ODM. Is Azimio anything else?
well, no, they claim, and I've disputed it, they claim it's a political party. But in my view, it's not a political party as power laws.
Yeah.
Strictly speaking, it is not a political party, because a political party in Kenya is defined under the Political Parties Act must have natural membership, registered voters, elections. They must be able to cast a vote. Now, I did not see ODM or Jubilee or KANU or Wiper cast a vote in August. Because
and in fact, even to buttress the point that Daktari is making, you cannot belong to more than one political party in Kenya. Now, I have had members of ODM lay claim to Raila Odinga as our party leader. Raila Odinga belongs to Azimio as a party, if at all the way we went to the election is anything to go by.
which was an illegality.
Yes. So does it belong to two political parties?
So that's an illegality. Okay.
Actually, there is no way. You see, for you to be a fully registered political party in Kenya, you must have 24,000 members in a majority of counties, which means 24 counties, 1,000 per. So what are the membership of Azimio in the 24 counties? This is just black and white. It's the law. So there's really nothing called Azimio coalition political party.
Okay.
They could have Azimio coalition, but not as a political party.
Political party. All right. So I think on the issues of the bill, you've said that you're not ready to speak about the memoranda today. So what I'll do is I'll start off with Javas on two issues: the issues of housing with all the peers. on your party, I know your party leader Isaac, so I'll invite him on Friday so that he can help us really understand the ideology. Because I'm still not very convinced that you can have trees as a political ideology. So I'll invite Isaac Alua next week on Friday so that we can put him on the spot.
My party leader is Agostino Neto.
So who is Isaac Alua? Or is there two different parties?
There are two green parties. There's a
two green
Congress
parties.
and there's United Green Movement.
So I know one green, which is Kalua.
We are the only recognized
So there's another
green in this country.
Which one are you? The Isaac Hello or Agostino?
The Agostino Neto.
Agostino Neto.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
How green is yours?
It's green Congress.
Jungle green or grass green?
No, that's green. Looks like he joined our
green.
party. Yes.
All right. So
But
Javas.
is that even right? Because although similarities in names should not have allowed even the registration of parties with a similarity.
So one is a Green Congress. Green Congress of Kenya.
And the other?
Then is United Green Movement.
Yeah, but still with the same word, it obviously creates confusion.
Yeah.
Because even now, I knew it was
Even now,
only
yes. Even you also need Isaac, right?
Yes, that's right. I didn't know Agostino is
But you see, the register of political parties
We didn't know he's a principal.
is in functional slumber, and that's why we are seeing all these things happening.
You'll only see the registrar acting when it's a matter of ODM, and that goes same
Yes.
to media.
That's true.
You want to air your ideologies, you want to talk about other parties, you want to give Kenyans an alternative. But that is not being aired because you watch mainstream media and you have been classified as either ODM or UDA. That's it.
Yeah.
So any other...
So we can refer to you as Congresswoman. Yours is Congress, but
No, United Green Movement.
You see, Javas is still confused. Whatever Agostino Neto is, I think you should ensure that your paycheck has an upward trajectory like taxes. So anyway, Javas, two issues. We've seen the struggle around explaining the housing fund or housing levy or housing tax.
But then, I missed the explanation by that PS. Probably because I don't watch news anymore.
You missed nothing.
Not the
You missed a lot. If you didn't, then you actually missed a lot. So
I'll go look
you should go back to it. So of course, the housing levy, which even seems to even confuse the president as well. I saw an article on Daily Nation on verbatim, a verbatim article by Gaito, Mashere Gaito. And he's just quoting the conversation, the interview between the president and one of the journalists. And there's been, of course, a very serious confusion from whether it's a tax, it's a levy, it's a saving, it's a donation, it's a whatever it is. But anyway, it's been called the housing something. You know?
By the way, as Javas tackles that question, there is a very nice, interesting article that has been written by a guy called himself Analyst, Wafula. I think people should read that article. Biko. Biko has actually done a very nice piece where he has done what I think the advantages and disadvantages, just as a reference.
Clearly, then, I think you've read. So anyway, the housing thing, Kenyans wants to understand more about what this housing thing is all about and where it ends, what the end game is all about. Then, of course, we tied up with the finance bill 2023-2024 that heads to Parliament. And I think maybe before you get to that, very quickly, Daktari. Now, there's this Parliament. I mean, how is it that conversations are happening outside Parliament? I don't know, but I think we all miss the days when we saw these engagements in Parliament. We saw the push and pull between William Ruto and Raila Odinga, bullfighter Khalwale, the kind of debates that went on there. And we were saved from the public gallery. We never witnessed what you're seeing these days, where these guys want to fight outside the precincts of Parliament. What happened to the quality of Parliament and debate?
This is one of the reasons why we came up with the idea of Punguza Mizigo. And one top of our agenda was we need to reduce Parliament because what we need to do, we need to see some quality in representation. Today, we don't see that quality in representation at all. In fact, we are even seeing a situation where members of Parliament do not understand what their mandate is. They don't understand. They don't understand one of their cardinal duties is to represent their constituents. or their constituencies on a number of issues, meaning they should table a motion, they should be asking questions about, what's happening in their constituency. That's representation. Then that representation should lead into legislation, that we now need to propose a law or a policy mechanism or an administrative measure to address the problem that's affecting my people and by and large maybe the people of Kenya. And that in passing that law, and once it's adopted, then it requires the government to implement, and that calls for another function of legislators, which is to oversight government the way it does its business. Bitok, we don't see that. And I've said it many times, what we have today in Parliament is sokojinga. You go to this sokojinga, everybody's bringing maembe, nini, here and there. Not that maembe and viazi is bad, but at least there is no order in the way in which, it is mambo jumbo. And I think that's where we are going wrong. And like you say, if we compare this previous parliament, especially from 2013 up to now, to be honest, we've lost it. I mean, there is absolutely nothing to write home about. Even if you look at the quality of people actually who go there to parliament, not to say, first of all, they are for lack of a better phrase, they are peeing on the whole idea of education. That you don't have to be educated, to be a parliamentarian. They shun, like Bigambo said, intellectual discourse. You don't see any. In fact, you just see matusi, adults abusing each other, insulting each other. And for me, in this day and age, this era of information technology, our kids know more than us in terms of from just social media. And when they see adults abusing each other, and they're supposed to be leaders of a country, I think we are losing the country. And the moment we start losing the country is because we are losing the country because we are actually losing in the leadership, the quality of leaders that we have. It's unfortunate. We don't have a parliament. And because even if you look at, for example, President William Ruto's behind the scenes, is try and buy members of the opposition into him. He doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to be criticized. He doesn't want to be called into account. Because if I want to be successful, I need a strong opposition that puts me on my toes. Okay. But that's not happening in Parliament today as we speak. Because by the time the VAT Act, the VAT was included in the petroleum, it was the same parliament, and the same parliamentarians now who are now crying and saying, "Oh, the cost of living has gone up." They were there. They passed that law. You remember we had a show here with Babu Owino, yes. And Babu Owino confessed to us nothing can pass through that parliament. We are a dead parliament. Those are the confessions of Babu Owino.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
31 minutes past 8 a.m. We finish exactly at 9. So, ukipewa nafasi unanyonga haraka. Danson Kinywa, good morning, GB and fellow Tatlas. Good morning, Clefos Tenamako. Good morning, GB and to your team listening live from Eldoret. Kangware Finance, good morning. Good morning to you, sir. That's Raz Bitok. I'm very much impressed on how this young lady is analyzing without siding either both sides of these useless parties. Peter Bowen, good morning, Tatlas. Good morning to you. But she now has a party. Shuku, you guys following you live from Uganda, Mbale City. Good to see you guys from Uganda. Aramokotel, good morning, Gerald Bitok and team. I have a question. Is it a must in Kenya, after every election, so must we have a discussion over past elections? That's even taking a whole half time. All right. Good question. Very nice. Good morning. Abbas Juguna, the Mandamano architects simply want the current president to have sleepless nights and fail to achieve anything, distractions and obstructions. George Sodi, good to see you this morning as well. All right. Right in, Javas.
On the issue of...
two things. 3% tax levy, finance bill.
Well, first we talk. The issue of the housing fund is a capsule idea that has become a very sweaty affair. And the heat in the room can no longer contain many. Okay. It is because I think the policy wonks, some of them perhaps I would say Lilliputian, did not find time to properly knead the idea, and there's also the necessity of engaging the public in discussion. Policy making by thorax is not what our people need right now. I would tell you that with great recollection from 1776, Adam Smith still whispers to us through the ages. And when you reflect on his seminal works, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith tells us quite eloquently, and he spoke before me in those ages past, that when there is encouragement of individual pursuit of self-interests, such self-interests, when encouraged by government, creates wealth inadvertently, even for the benefit of society. That is the central thesis of Adam Smith. The issue, for example, on the table has been, is it necessary for us to continue taxing the people higher for the benefit of government? Another question people have been asking is that, should government construct houses for the people? Or would it be possible for the government to zero rate or even cut taxes by half on construction materials
To enable.
and then let the people construct houses by themselves? As they pursue their selfish interests, they help areas develop. That's how urbanization takes place. I think, having listened to P.S. Hinga, and I've seen some comical clip that some very cryptic individuals have put together, showing that he said nothing other than sweating over the matter. I would say that when you listen to P.S. Hinga through the period of his explanation, you would see the objective idea behind this housing fund. Now, I recall that around 2021 or thereabout, there was the idea about 1.5% proposition by Uhuru Kenyatta's regime for housing fund, and the employer to match it with another 1.5%. William Ruto has just doubled two sides. Raila Odinga, also in the run-up to the last election, talked about the same thing. I can assure you that even today, Azimio is not diametrically opposed to the housing levy. It's only that they are feeling they're on the other side. They're in Siberia when it comes to resource making. That cold is what is making them oppose this idea. The same way, for example, the Tanga wing in the run-up to the election was opposed to the housing levy at the time. You come to realize that when you reflect on Article 43 of the Constitution, socio-economic rights, and the issue of the necessity of housing, when you look at, for example, the Employment Act, and realize that various sections of that act provides that the employer is supposed to provide housing or meet the cost of housing for the employees. Yeah, that is in the law. You realize that housing becomes a very critical issue in the society and in Kenya today. Yes, we know that today, from the time somebody meets you and asks you where you live, they already position you socio-economically because of the kind of housing that is geographically in those areas.
They can already get you.
Yes, you say that you come from Komarok, somebody will already imagine that the entire Komarok is for low-scale earners. You say you live in Lavington or Karen, somebody imagine that you are bourgeois, all right? And driven by bourgeoisie interests. Let's face it. I think that it is possible for this matter to be deliberated on. If there will be need to freeze it for some time for people to understand it, the better. Today, I can assure you, everybody here in Kenya today, I have not met a human being who wants to live like a bird on top of a tree. But is it possible for us to look at this levy and make it make sense to the ordinary citizen who will be the contributor? For instance, when you say that you will be levied 3% of your salary, and that house, rather you can opt out of this scheme after 7 years, right? Now, after 7 years, for example, if you've contributed only 700,000 shillings or 1 million, reasonably speaking, is there a house worth 1 million? All right? And we've not talked about the issue of the geographical location of these houses. Are these houses going to be in all the 47 counties? Now, if I've been allocated a house like I saw somebody else...
For the middle class. I think the idea was that this house is targeting the working class.
Yes, you see, the issue is that it's targeting the working class. Yeah. But you see, the contributors, what is the scale of the contributors?
Exactly.
Now, that is what now the ministry and PS Inga needs to help people to understand. If you are somebody who owns 2 houses already in the country, or 4 houses, including a holiday home, why should you contribute? Exactly. They should talk about then the necessity of government getting capital for socio-economic development on the aspect of housing for the greater good of all. Then, if that is the goal, how and what is the best way to go about it? So that everybody understands. If a teacher, for example, who is in Kasipul Kabondo, lives there, has got a semi-permanent house there and comfortable, or a permanent house there. And then you tell this teacher, you need to contribute. They need to see the rationale. So that's why I'm saying that what is missing in this idea of the housing levy is national conversation on the rationale and having people get a buy-in of this. What started messing this entire idea is, for example, when Honorable Gerald Bitok, Senator, started saying that this thing will pass whether people like it or not. That's what I'm talking about, policy making by thorax. That's what should be avoided. The other thing is that...
No, before we finish on that, I think for me, Javas, maybe a comment from you.
See, now you'll be eating into your time. Because once he finishes, when I do around.
Okay, go
yeah. So we need to entertain national conversation on this. The issue of rationale making for public engagement in policy making.
Okay.
That's one thing that is needed. It must not be seen as a PS Hinga affair.
Okay.
So that when even a legislator, just after they came from the PG on Tuesday at State House, every legislator should be able to discuss issue about housing levy in a convincing way. They have not even gone to their constituencies from the time they came from the PG to engage with the people that, you see, this is the president's idea. It was even in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, and this is the railway.
The direction.
And that we are going to move slowly in this direction so that the Mama Mboga, the way they were persuaded to vote for the president, should be persuaded that actually the president's idea of housing, as it was during the campaign, still is for the greater good and for the benefit of the Mama Mboga.
Straight into the finance bill.
Finally, the finance bill, I would say that there are certain policy, incremental policy, tax proposals that may not be favorable. Now, I would say this with a few questions. Is it possible that some policy wonks within government ministries are determined to make the president unpopular by all these proposals? Because if the president rode to power on the horse of popularity for the common good, why are some proposals, for example, on fuel levy adjusted upward? Is somebody craftily trying to make the president unpopular?
But you want to tell me the president is not aware that that can make
No, it's possible, but you see, already, like right now, there are certain challenges. Yes, but you see, right now, if the president backtracks on certain aspects right now, he'll be seen to have bent over backwards due to pressure from the opposition. And he cannot actually embrace that idea or even beat that path.
Okay.
I think what is necessary, and the president has taken, I think, 2 occasions, at the turn of the year and just most recently, to try and explain the state of the economy, where we are and where he thinks he's moving the country. We need lots of these discussions. Look at the lyrical Tony Blair. Even when things were tough, the guy would take time to engage and reason with the Britons. And they would say, okay, fine, I think it's tough, but we can agree with him and we'll stand behind him.
All right.
Listen to Bill Clinton during his time. Some ideas, the way he was popularizing them and pushing them through. At first, you may want to disagree with him, but then he buys your heart and spirit by way of discussion. Yes, the Obamacare as well. It was a hard sell, but it sold anyway.
So in short, you are saying the bill is not going to be an easy sell. So we need to romanticize.
No, basically, it's not just a question of romanticization, because we are not going to make policies and legislate finance acts by way of poetry. But the thing is that the people need to see that actually the times are tough. There are times when in households in this country and elsewhere, that you will tell the people we are going to pull our socks from around the anklets by force and tie it up there by the rubber band because it has lost elasticity for this reason, for this period of time. Today, for example, let me give you a continental example. Do you know that the situation in South Africa is more dire than ours today? If today we were just to have load shedding, like South Africans have, do you think this country and the situation and the politics will be tenable? If at all the issue of graft and protectionism, as it has been in South Africa, would manifest itself in Kenya today, this country would speak and hold on the levers the way it's holding today? No.
It'll collapse. Okay.
Some countries in Africa, actually, look at the inflation in Ghana. Even when we are moving towards the election last year, inflation in Ghana is at a different level. The CD today has received a thorough beating compared to the
Even
Kenyan
they defaulted on their loans.
Exactly. So when you look at the state of the economy across the continent, we need to appreciate that we need not to be so much inward looking, but appreciate that the state of the economy. Just yesterday, do you know that the economy of Germany has entered recession because of the contracting of the economy? Just yesterday.
Okay.
So we need to open ourselves to discussion about what is necessary, what is urgent, and how do we pull through.
And why? All right.
I went
Brenda.
to debate in Ghana Parliament, and they say that the reason the CD is getting a beating is because there's an economic Maguire.
All right, so I understand. All right, swing in so that our elder will help us wrap it up. Okay.
I'd pick it from, the Terry mentioned that the quality of our parliament. So it all takes us back to political parties. What are the political party processes even during nominations? We see political party tickets being handed over to the highest bidder. It may not be necessarily the brightest bulb in the room. They choose whoever it is that has oiled the hands of the party leader well to get those positions. And that reflects from the kind of leaders that we get. And that will definitely reflect on the kind of quality of legislations that come out of that, because you're not expecting substandard leadership to provide, to produce quality laws. And that's low quality legislation or low quality policies that have been made in that House of Parliament as it is will reflect even in the implementation, because there's no way you're going to do magic with that piece
Cabbage
of
in, cabbage
legislation.
out.
Yeah. So it reflects to everything that we do. So on the matter of the housing levy, I think our constitution also failed us in failing to give timelines. Yes, we know there is the issue of having socio-economic rights being achieved progressively, but housing, food, and shelter are very basic. So where have these people been living? Why do we want, why does Hinga think that at this point, we're supposed to give that 3%, yet we cannot afford food? What is the hierarchy of these rights? Am I supposed to live in a very good house, yet the cost of unga is unaffordable for me? I cannot manage to buy unga. I cannot buy sugar. That's good maybe because we're not going to be able to sugarcoat stuff again. We're going to just say it all the time. But like, the same Hinga had promised, he was PS housing again in Uhuru's government.
Oh, you know, the guy was retained.
Yes.
For Bomayanga.
So he was okay with 1.5 then. What has changed? And why is it that now it's 3%? What informs these figures? Are we just being given figures that are not well thought out? I think there's need for national dialogue on this. Let the issue of public participation not be something that is just thrown around. We asked in the papers, and do they consider those opinions? Do the public participation actually take place? Because he speaks of having 200 units, affordable housing units in every constituency from June this year. Where are we going to get that money? This is a government that claims that there is no money whatsoever for to fund education. Free education in this country right now is not free anymore. The public schools that we have are charging fees. They may not call it fees, but whatever it is, they call it parents wanaumia. Because you are torn between buying food or buying uniform or paying for remedial classes. These things take place. We see kids in home clothes going to school. It's not like we do not have education officers in wherever places these schools are situated. But these parents are being charged for this. But then you have a fund that is not well thought out. Then you have a legislator claiming that it apita whether you like it or not. I don't think President Ruto should be spending time and money trying to buy political parties and trying to bring in legislators from the opposition to join his side, because either way, these people are not going to oppose anything. He does not need to buy them out. If they were strong enough, these are things that they would have seen and started opposing. These are things that would be discussed in Parliament. We're not supposed to be discussing this. We should not have people discussing the housing levy or the finance being debated properly outside Parliament than where it's going to be passed. Because what business of ours? I would talk about the finance bill from morning to evening, because I know I've gone through it and I know whatever risks there is for me, what that means for my paycheck at the end of every month, starting when it will be passed or when it will be implemented. But if my MP, Samuel Atandi, cannot debate that in Parliament, cannot bring what I think...
I'm so sorry that Atandi is your MP.
You're almost mourning.
Because these people who would want to, they jump to oppose anything government, not because it's bad, but because of who's bringing it. So it's time that the opposition takes its place. There's no need to scramble to get to government. Oppose the government so well that come 2027, people would not want to listen to what President Ruto would want to say. Unfortunately for him, he has a team that also is not working to make sure that he can have 2 terms. We may be surprised if the same people that he is working with, he's a PhD holder, but he does not see that these people are giving him guns to shoot himself. Because how then do you not, as a president, know that the needs of your country? You came in, the worst bit is you come in as a hustler. You want to help your fellow hustlers to achieve whatever it is. Then you come and start killing them with taxes. I mean, he should be the first one to oppose all this.
Okay, all right. Daktari.
For me,
10 minutes.
in administrative law, there is something called explanatory accountability. That you can take a decision, but then you have to explain to the people. I don't even quite remember whether actually housing levy was actually a campaign message for Kenya Kwanza. I don't seem to recall that. Be that as it may. You see, this housing levy is not informed by any research at all. This is a kind of policy decision that should be informed by some empirical research. People ought to have gone out there and actually done serious research and find out to establish, is there actually a need, and is that need national? Yeah. If I have my Kibanda house and I'm comfortable with it, while I'm still struggling with the rest of the bills, why then do you want me to insist that I must contribute to another house, which I must, I don't know how many years? There's no clarity at all. Secondly, Bitok, we need to juxtapose this issue of contributing to housing levy to the state of unemployment in this country. Today, we say that about 70% of Kenyans are unemployed. Yeah. How will you be able to fund this housing levy with such a high rate of unemployment in the country? What is even the formula, for example, of redistribution? Like Javas has asked a very fundamental question. If I have 2 homes and probably a third one, which is my holiday home, why do I need to fund another housing? You see, you are making this issue of housing a moral argument, which is very difficult to actually implement. So in my view, I think this is not a priority for Kenya right now. What William Ruto and his administration ought to do is to focus on how they can revamp the economy, make the lives of Kenyans slightly better, easier, try to expand or exploit any economic opportunities in all the 47 counties of Kenya, expand the tax base. Once you expand the tax base, then you collect more taxes, and perhaps you can then begin to talk about this issue of housing and the rest. And I've always said, why not start by fixing the homeless on our streets first, and the IDPs? I mean, surely there's already funds to that extent. So I'll leave it at that. I don't think there was proper research. This is misplaced priorities in my view. I think they just need to stop it. What was the second issue?
The second issue was the bill.
The bill. Which was the finance bill.
You look very agitated.
Because you see, I'm very happy. Because I'm thinking, Bitok, maybe to buttress what Brenda said. You see, we really have a failed parliament. And consequently, we have a failed leadership in this country. And because of that, you'll find a government that's lazy, changing the goalposts. Brenda has said it, and I don't want to repeat. Ruto came in from a very populous campaign mode of this is a hustler nation. This government will be a hustler government. They're talking about the Mamamboga, the wheelbarrow, bottom up. We don't hear those narratives anymore. They have gone to their slumberland, and Kenyans are confused. But I hope, to be honest with you, like I keep saying, it's a learning lesson for Kenyans. We have done now, I think, in my theory, the full cycle. We've seen Kenyatta one coming from the so-called populars Mount Kenya area. He lied to Kenyans that he fought for the freedom of this country. We know he did not. We saw Moi, and then we had a very moderate, fairly successful president, Kibaki. Then we saw Kenyatta too, who was a disaster and put us in the state we are in today. Now we've seen Ruto, in my view, who actually represents all the surrogates of all those regimes.
It's a summary of all of them.
Yeah, so he has summed it up that now eventually we can actually say there's absolutely nothing good that can come from these so-called populist leaders following money. And that was by the way to your point about political parties and the leadership. It's not, okay, it's cultish, yes, but it also comes with money. If you don't support a political party financially, because sometimes the party leader is the nectar, that attracts funding. And people will hang around the party leader because they think that the party leader has so much money. The moment we run away from that, and the moment people stop expecting that politics will put food on their table, that's when I think our politics will begin to mature.
All right. I'll give you, I have only 3 minutes, so I'll give each a minute for the tackle of the day. I start with you, Brenda. Okay, maybe we start with Daktari, so I don't know what is the tackle of the day. Daktari. Lakini wewe utamaliza na unabii. Javas, wewe unajua tackle of the day.
Well, first I would say that the emerging trend of politics and the trail of politics in this country today is quite worrying. The issue, for example, Maina Njenga, one of the most divisive political figures outside.
He's
in
back.
fact, one of the most divisive figures outside the political cosmos, who leads and is associated with an outlawed sect, yet is being celebrated by some and entertained still. We don't take our laws seriously. If things are outlawed, they should be outlawed, and criminal charges should be preferred if necessary. The other thing is that we want to see the law working for everyone and not just selectively against others. Recently, I saw a photo, of course, of Raila Odinga being picked right from his plane by his motorcade. And one wonders, why is a private citizen being given such kind of royal treatment? I think we as Kenyans are not serious enough. Kenyans, we have not lost our temper enough to push ourselves to ask critical questions to these leaders. We think that when we genuflect to our leaders and celebrate them, that we are making our political parties and the countries better. We are losing it as Kenyans gradually. I hope we'll not find ourselves in the South Sudan way. Secondly, even South Sudan. South Sudan, where the president, even the issue of throwing Garang's wife out, it is to tinker with the program and calendar towards the elections, because Kir does not want elections at all. Then the Sudan way as well. And also let us pray that our government will and is going to make critical policies that will not plunge us into the kind of economic decline that South Africa is facing today. Further, on the issue of bipartisan talks, we must demand without reservation that these leaders, the 7 aside, should have common sense and the interest of the country at heart. Dr. Ekuru Aokot has indicated that some of the issues that are being put on the table can ably and perfectly be handled by Parliament, because that's the work of Parliament. The issue of the musical chairs that we are getting into and the small politics is not going to help us move forward as a country. Bitok, I would close by saying that we want to demand and ask for leadership from the government and from the opposition. On the issue of the housing levy and the finance bill, let there be not just a question of public participation, critical national discourse for the greater good. If things need to be revised, let them be revised. But let us invite ourselves on the table of policy making and legislation as a people for the greater good of our country.
All right, Brenda, tackle of the day in under a minute.
Okay, my call is for honest leadership, both from the opposition and the government. Let everyone be honest with what exactly they mean for their people, because there's no need of using Parliament or using the membership of Parliament in the name of bipartisan committee or the 7 aside as Bigambo calls them,
Rugby.
to try and advance their personal interests at the expense of the Mwananchi. So let them stop lying to us that whatever it is they're talking about is going to benefit Kenyans. There's a call for Azimio to be honest with their people whatever it is that they want does not benefit Kenyans at this point. It's not going to solve, bipartisan talks are not going to solve the cost of living. So let us be honest with ourselves, and let the president also be adjustable, flexible enough to adjust where he needs. He may have missed, he may not have seen the team that he was working with, but at this point, I think he's seeing the kind of people that he has put in charge to try and implement what he has as an idea for being the president of Kenya. So let him adjust accordingly. It's still too early in his term, so he can still make things right for Kenyans and restore that, because he said, akieka Biblia chini, it's now time, President, kindly put the Biblia chini and start working for Kenyans.
Lakini hajasema ameweka chini tayari. Sasa ngoja.
Bitok, citing Chinua Achebe in Things Fall Apart, I can see the center is not holding anymore. Okay. Things will soon fall apart in this government. I think we are already hearing murmurs and tremors that things are not well. There is a bit of disorganization. I think, just to echo Brenda, the president needs to say, okay, we made these promises. You know, we've said this before, and I think let's repeat it. We made these promises, but I think the state of the affairs is this. You know, kama ni kuomba msamaha kwa Kenya, kuomba tu msamaha useme poleni wa Kenya, tuliwadanganya, lakini sasa kimeumana. No, I will keep saying, if you cannot abandon the lies, please reduce them. Okay. Yeah? Please reduce them. Lastly, to President Uhuru Kenyatta. You know, I want to remind President Uhuru Kenyatta that there is a law called the Retirement Benefits Act for presidents, vice presidents, prime minister, and designated officers. Why doesn't he want to retire in dignity? But I also blame Kenya Kwanza political chaos. So now that political chaos of ODM thing is rubbing also into Kenya Kwanza. Why doesn't somebody table a motion in Parliament to deny President Uhuru Kenyatta his retirement benefits because he is actively involved in politics? That is the law. You only benefit from that Retirement Benefits Act if you are not active in politics. So they should invoke those provisions of the law, and maybe that will awaken President Uhuru Kenyatta. That's my tackle of the day.
Okay. Peter Bowen, good morning. Tackle, good morning. Ken Ambola, great show. The panelists never disappoint. Asante. John Gerono, good morning. Gerald Bitok and my fellow tacklers. Good to see you. Sister, thank you for always staying up late to tune in. Kangora's finest. Great discussion. Asante. Kabon Sarah, bipartisan is going nowhere. It's a waste of resources. 3% yoni kitendawili. Yeah, Rama, but the people have the choice to vote the best, respective of the party. So what does Ghana and Germany has to do with the price of unga and poison sugar? Can the gentleman replace Inga at all to explain this? Hope the president is watching. As I spoke too soon, I thought the president appointed the policymakers. Ama kuna shadow policymakers, all right? We'll have that conversation again. This has been the Sheria Wiki edition of 26th of May 2023, and it ends now. But before it ends, you are reminded that you are a farmer. Please ensure that you get your animal feeds from Fugo. Fugo Feeds by Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. We give you a guarantee of quality nutritional formulation, and also giving you the safety, no poisons, no feed poisoning, give you the best returns in the market, and also ensure that your consumers are also safe. If you're doing chicken, get your chicken feeds. You're doing dairy, get your Fugo dairy. If you're doing ngurue, get your Fugo pigs. And if you're doing samak, also rech, get your Fugo tilapia. Until Monday, have a great weekend. Thank God it's Friday. You don't know what plans you have up your sleeves, Daktari. It seems like today you don't look very inspiring today.
Chumi ni mbaya bana. 3% levy is a monkey on our shoulder.
Ere tukule kabla ipite Parliament.
Ama tukule kabla 3%.
Kabla 3%. Of course, they might come back for what you have. So,
you know when they watched even on CNN, the state of the UK yesterday, milk is up by 37%. Sugar is up by 32% in the UK.
Oh, okay. So tunalia sana.
That's why I'm saying people should not be inward looking. We need to have a global focus on actually what is really happening. But just the same way we attacked and tackled the issue of the COVID in Africa and in Kenya, did not hammer us the way it did in China and Europe. With that global perspective, we can say, how do we cushion ourselves from some of these things that economic trends around the world.
All right, 3 minutes past 9 a.m. This is the tackle and it ends now. I'm yours, Gerald Bitok. We love you and bye-bye.